In today's episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to the 2006 film Thank You for Smoking. Thank You for Smoking is a black comedy with a runtime of an hour and 32 minutes, directed by Jason Reitman, who I've never seen any of his movies before. This movie stars Aaron Eckhart, Maria Bello, Cameron Bright, Adam Brody, Sam Elliott, Katie Holmes, David Cockner, Rob Lowe, William H. Macy, J.K. Simmons, and Robert Duvall. So let's get right into Thank You for Smoking. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the DubCast. So overall thoughts on Thank You for Smoking. I thought this movie was decent. Not great, not bad, just decent comes to mind when thinking about this movie. Nothing really special about it though, if I'm being honest. Aaron Eckhart I thought was rootable as this sort of anti-hero for the cigarette corporations, and I thought he did a solid job in his role. The plot, in my opinion, isn't really intriguing with him just being a cigarette lobbyist, which, yes, there is some interesting parts of that, but overall as a story looking at it from a bird's eye view, the whole movie, I don't know, I didn't think it was that interesting. I guess it kind of opens your eyes a little bit, but we're in the year 2025, so obviously this movie doesn't age the best. I'm not sure what the cigarette standard was in 2006, being someone who grew up with basically cigarettes being frowned upon. I mean, I don't know. I remember when I was 10, I was outside a restaurant and some woman's like, never smoke cigarettes. And as she was smoking a cigarette, I'm sure a lot of people have had the same experience. I mean, we're one of the first generations to grow up with Dare. So I didn't really relate to the cigarette aspect of this movie as much as I wasn't able to ingratiate myself in that society, because I feel like nowadays things are a lot different in the world, and maybe this movie was kind of illustrating that. So his kid being involved in the movie as kind of the main subplot was an interesting choice given the focus of the movie on preventing children from smoking cigarettes. The kid was a kind of a beast, though. I will give him some respect. I mean, they definitely had a good father-son dynamic. That definitely was one of the better portions of the film. J.K. Simmons, I thought, was great casting for his role as an unruly boss, and I wish they featured him more throughout the movie. I mean, obviously, he hasn't come to his whiplash era of being an insane, dictator person, and just like a dominant being. Maybe he was, though, because he was in Spider-Man and stuff. But I feel like they kind of underused him. I mean, you're J.K. Simmons. I'm looking at this list, in my opinion, he's probably the second or third biggest name on this list, just in my honest opinion, of actors in this movie. Adam Brody, I don't know if that's Adrian Brody's brother, but either way, Casey Affleck, I don't even know why I just said Casey Affleck, because he's a brother of Ben Affleck and he's less famous. You get the point. I think J.K. Simmons is one of the top tier actors in this cast, so let's get him in a role that is good for him. Oh wait, we already have that. How about we feature him more? We needed more J.K. Simmons in this movie. Shorter runtime. We could add in some J.K. Simmons scenes, in my opinion. I do like the aspect of him, Aaron Eckhart's character, Nick, saying a little too much to the reporter, being the reason that he goes down at the end. I know this is kind of a typical movie trope, but I feel like it worked in this movie, especially because they don't really show you a lot of that. I mean, they kind of allude to it, but I don't know. I was kind of taken aback by that, so that was a good shock factor for me, just slightly. So yeah, his battles back and forth with the senator, Nick's battles back and forth, provided some entertaining moments, some funny moments, in my opinion. Obviously, William H. Macy as this kind of geek senator from Vermont was a good casting choice as well. And their battles, him and Aaron Eckhart's character's battles, provided some entertainment for this movie for sure. Besides that, there wasn't really a lot of stuff that made me smile or laugh in a movie, especially a movie labeled as a comedy, as a black comedy. I don't know what a black comedy is. I just, see the genre and write it down. Exposing myself. Anyways, I didn't think this was a comedy. I thought this was kind of I guess satire. Is satire technically a comedy? I feel like satire is a different genre. Maybe I have to take that up with the movie people of the world, but I didn't think this was a great comedy. I didn't find myself laughing, and personally, I've been in a good mood lately. I've been finding myself laughing at dumb stuff. I mean, I'm not going to review it, but I was just watching The Mandalorian season 3, and Grogu is making me laugh. Like, I don't know, I'm just in a good mood lately. Everything's looking up for the boy. Not really, but I don't know, I'm just laughing at stuff more often. But this was not something that I found really particularly funny. As I mentioned before, the satire aspect of the movie, I can appreciate that, especially in today's age where cigarettes are heavily, heavily frowned upon in the year 2025. So we can kind of understand where the other side is coming from. You know, they're just trying to make money and do their jobs. That's why they're in these corporations. But also how they don't really give a fuck about the human population. I mean, most people who work at these corporations high up, they just care about money. I mean, I think this issue still comes to roost today of comparing completely different issues, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. So I'm not going to say it. You know, well, Patreon. If you want to hear what I have to say about my politics, Patreon. That I deleted. Anyways, yeah, they don't give a fuck about the human, just paying the mortgage. That seems to be Nick's main theme throughout the movie is, you know, he doesn't care about if his job's good or bad. He's just got to pay the mortgage. And I think it's understandable. When I was looking for a job recently, I had an interview for a cigarette company. And I think I may have been on the short list for that because there's not a lot of people who want to apply and work for a cigarette company. Now, would I have taken the job? Yes. But that was a long time ago, so I don't know. But, you know, things happen. I don't think anyone should be held accountable for their job, especially when I don't think it's really Nick's fault throughout the movie that cigarettes happen to go to the people that they do go to. I don't personally think that it's his fault. Obviously he's not helping, but I feel like, you know, people got to do their job. Anyways, enough on that. Overall, looking at this movie, I don't think there's a ton of great aspects that I give this movie, with most of it coming off as just fine or okay, decent, like I said at the beginning. Probably wouldn't recommend this movie to anyone to watch, or for anyone to watch it again if you've already seen it. I feel like we got the message, short run time, you know, maybe you go back and just watch the senator scenes and the kid being a boss, but besides that, not really much to it in my opinion. I didn't think it was a waste of a watch, so where I'm landing it, I'm giving it a 6.2. Decent score. Wouldn't really recommend it to anyone, but, you know, it's not the worst movie in the world. It wasn't terrible. It didn't drag on that much. It was somewhat entertaining throughout. So 6.2, a little bit on the lower scale, but, you know, not terrible that I'm like, this is what was wrong, this is what was wrong, you know. Just, it was fine. Literally the definition of a fine movie. So we'll get into our DubCast graphic, comparing this movie amongst the other movies we reviewed so far. So this is movie number 49, which is crazy to say. We're on pace to hit 100 in a little bit less than a year. I think I started this in April, the middle of April. And at the time of filming this, it's early March. So, yeah, that's a good pace. 100 movies in a year reviewed. That's like a movie every 3 days, dude. So, no, not really. It's like 3.5 days. Anyways, I'm proud. You know, big list. People telling me to watch movies. Everything happening in my life. 49 movies. Oh, wait, I said 100. No, it's 50 divided by 365. So that's really like 7. A movie every week. That's beautiful. Really. I mean, we're almost, I think I'm going to hit a movie in a week. That's pretty good. And there's actually more because there is movies I didn't review. So yeah, enough of the DubCast. Looking back and being proud of my life of watching movies and doing nothing and sitting in my house and watching movies. So, number 43 of 49, this movie ranks worse than Boogie Nights, which was a 6.9, but better than Magnolia, which is a 4.9. Both of those movies featured William H. Macy. This movie is worse than Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which was an 8.9, both J.K. Simmons movies. So yeah, sometimes, you know, I do grasp at straws a little bit. I don't even remember J.K. Simmons being in Across the Spider-Verse, but he was. So there's 2 J.K. Simmons movies for you comparing. Yeah, I think speaks for itself. So enough with the DubCast graphic. Let's get into my thoughts and reactions throughout the film. Starting off the movie, you know, my favorite segment ever is to talk about the beginning of the movie because I always forget what happened. So when I look back at my notes and I remember what happened at the beginning of the movie, I'm like trying to piece it together to how things happen in the end. So at the beginning of this movie, we get our intro to Nick Naylor, which, cool name. I don't know. Is that really like a scumbag name? I guess it doesn't matter because he's just trying to pay the mortgage, you know? So he works at the Academy of Tobacco Studies. Now, this kind of threw me for a loop the whole movie. What is an Academy of Tobacco Studies? And like, he's a lobbyist. Why are we bullshitting into this code? I guess maybe there's certain titles you need to work for cigarette corporations. I don't know, but this Academy of Tobacco Studies, like, I don't really know what that is. I still didn't really understand what that was and who J.K. Simmons is and the whole scene of things. Essentially, he's the lobbyist for cigarettes in D.C., and he's not, a nerd or a geek or someone who's sitting around all day doing nothing. He is the guy who can pick up any girl on crack, and he does it. We see it. We see him do it. So that's true. But yeah, he's not like your typical nice guy. Like, he's got a little self hype going on. And we learn that very early on. So right away, we meet J.K. Simmons as his boss. Great casting, like I said before. Looking back in this note now, wish they used him more. But yeah, I was hyped to see J.K. Simmons in it. So, learning a little bit about Nick's backstory, he has split custody over his kid. He meets the guy that his ex-wife has been sleeping with and just completely owns him about how he's actually his father. Which, if you have a toxic relationship with your ex-wife, this is like the perfect thing to do. That's the trump card. If you're going to talk to him and it's like, I just reviewed The Bear season 3 where Richie was very like chill with the guy, and it's also that actor guy, so that's cool. But if you need to have like a hostile relationship, like Richie didn't have a hostile relationship, if you need to like be toxic, this is like trump card number one. Like, you're never going to be the dad. I was the dad. I made that kid, So good job for Nick, because he's an asshole throughout this movie, but that's kind of the charm to his character. He's a good asshole. So the new husband of his ex-wife and his ex-wife are worried about secondhand smoke. But the interesting thing that I noticed throughout this movie is we don't really see Nick smoke. He just advocates for cigarettes. I know that's kind of like the double entendre of him not, hopefully I'm using this correctly, him not smoking but advocating for cigarettes because he doesn't really give a shit about anything. But we don't really see him smoke, so I was concerned, or I was not concerned, but I was wondering, like, do you guys know this guy at all? He doesn't really smoke. He just, I guess if you're in the Academy of Tobacco Studies all day, maybe you'll smell like smoke, and that's how you get secondhand smoke, but that would be like third hand, because if people are smoking around him, it gets onto his jacket or something. That's secondhand smoke. Third hand smoke would be going home and smelling like cigarettes, when really that shouldn't even be that bad. I know there was a big panic about secondhand smoke back in the day. I think there still is, but like, unless you're like puffing in someone's face, I don't really think that that's a problem, personally. Not an expert, so maybe someone can let me know down below in the comments. Anyways, moving on. Nick has a TV appearance, which is one of his great scenes back and forth with William H. Macy's character. William H. Macy's character for sure, the senator from Vermont. So he gets recognition from his big boss, not only his boss, J.K. Simmons' boss, so two bosses above you. Gotta always impress that person especially. And he was not dealing directly with the senator, he was dealing with the senator's aide, and he was going back and forth with the cancer kid and kind of, made light of the situation, or just assumed that the kid wouldn't have had cancer with the cigarettes or without cigarettes. No, he assumed, he owned the situation. Like, he was like, here's why you're wrong. This kid doesn't have cancer because of cigarettes. Do you want to smoke a cigarette right now? He was being wild, but it worked because people expect, cigarettes are bad and everyone should say that. So right off the bat, he's getting W's. He already owned the ex's new man's. He owned this guy. Like, Nick's got it going on, man. So now he has an interview with a reporter while he feels like the man, and I haven't mentioned his little trio of people. I forget what their specific name was, but one of them works with alcohol and one of them works with guns, and they're kind of like the killers. They just advocate for terrible things. And they're like bantering back and forth about how he has this big interview with this reporter who's going to be this crazy chick with big tits. And he has the interview with her, and then right after that, she wants to see his interview, and they end up she doesn't want to see his interview. She wants to see his apartment, and of course they end up banging. This is pretty obvious, knowing Nick. He said it at the beginning of the movie, every girl's like crack. I will say, objectively speaking, and being probably sexist. Was not impressed with the, you know, breast size. Thought we were getting more hype for that. This was an attractive woman, but the way they led up to it, like, you know, I don't want to nitpick. I thought she was a very attractive woman, but just very misclassified by the comments made by his two friends. Still very attractive. Can see Aaron Eckhart and that woman. Maybe that's his wife. I don't even know, but I don't know. Thought that was weird. They were like saying that she has very big breasts and she's like a skinny, like slim, like one of those slim cuties, you know. And I don't no weight. I don't want to get canceled. No weight judgment in 2025, right? But we can still describe people. So hopefully people understand that when I get famous and everyone comes back to this video and cancels me. Anyways, so he's sleeping with as a reporter. Terrible idea. I guess I'm kind of an idiot for not seeing this coming and being a little bit surprised when it ends up getting to him. Never, never mix work and pleasure. People at work are not your friends. I know she doesn't really work directly with him, but it's like, that's been popping out to me a lot in my life recently. I don't know why, but because everyone at work is very nice to me. I don't know. It's a bad idea to do this. I mean, I don't have to say that. I don't have to harp on it. So he's visiting Los Angeles as well with a Hollywood executive to get him to include cigarettes in a movie, and they have this great brainstorm session where they decide on a Brad Pitt movie where he's sleeping with another female woman who's famous. I forget the name of the actress. And then they blow smoke rings in space that this will cost $25 million, but Brad Pitt with this woman in space having sex and then blowing smoke rings will like convince people to buy cigarettes. Honestly, in 2006, like I wouldn't be surprised that was actually like the #1 movie of the year and everyone just started smoking cigarettes to be like Brad Pitt. I mean, he's coming off, I believe Fight Club was around that time. Hopefully it is, or else I'll look stupid because I claim that's one of my favorite movies, but I don't know the year. I think it was like 2001, but I could be totally wrong on that. Anyways, I just thought that this whole idea was a ridiculous idea. Brad Pitt and a woman just banging in space and then smoking. The first thing they're doing, first of all, they're in space. Let's have sex and then let's blow smoke rings with cigarettes. I don't know. And, there's a lot of blowback with this because they don't want to have cigarettes in movies as the DEA and those type of organizations are coming after cigarettes pretty hard. So he keeps going on his trip. He brought his son on this trip. I mean, his son had some fun moments along the way. Nothing really notable that I wrote down, but now he's visiting the Marlboro Man, made famous from advertising Marlboros, and he is paying them to denounce them and then have an appearance on a TV show where he says he's going to kill Nick within a week. This was confusing. I didn't know what was happening with the Marlboro Man. I didn't know where I was, like, was I just had a lapse of judgment? Did I have a lapse of paying attention? This whole stuff with the Marlboro Man threw me off. And so we're just going to skip right by that because it's not really notable. It doesn't really make a big impact in the movie, in my opinion. So Nick's now, coming off banger TV appearances. He got the Marlboro Man to do what he wants. He's with the reporter. He had the TV meeting, or not the TV meeting. He had the TV interview where he, kind of won that debate. Like, it's kind of like going viral before going viral, I'm assuming, in 2006. He's feeling like the man right now. So what happens to him? He gets captured by a white van as they attach a bunch of nicotine patches to his body. This was a very odd scene. First of all, would this even be realistic that people anti-cigarette would go around to a lobbyist who works for the Academy of Tobacco Studies and find him and just put him in a van and attach a bunch of nicotine patches to his body? Like, I get it, William H. Macy's in this movie, so we have to make it a little bit ridiculous. Like, can we just have a normal movie that he's in? I mean, this movie was mostly normal, but this was just like, what was the point of this? I mean, it kind of, you see the point of it because it denounces him, but I don't know. I thought that was weird. And also, if he had a million nicotine patches attached to his body, obviously he ends up in the hospital, but doesn't end up dead. I mean, point that nicotine isn't that bad for you? I don't know. No, nicotine's bad for you. Don't smoke cigarettes. They're very addicting. I can pull up a stat for you right now, but I'm not gonna. Don't smoke cigarettes, guys, okay? Never. So after his long hospital stay, he can no longer smoke and eat cigarettes, and he goes on talk shows and interviews as a victim, which is a good slant that his boss J.K. Simmons likes, because now he's being portrayed on the other side that they were looking to fight back against. He's now joined that side because he's the victim after an attack. He was abducted, forced to do nicotine, against his will. So yeah, that's good for his boss. And this is like, he's peaking. He hits his peak with the interview stuff and the movie idea, and then comes crashing down with the getting captured, and then he's rising right back up to where he was, and then the article comes out. GG, bro. This is why, never tell reporters anything, even if they're attractive. And, you know, I mean, go back to my review of The Man on Fire. That reporter was sleeping with her boss to get promotions. I mean, this is probably a very consistent trope throughout the early 2000s. Woman sleeps with boss to get leg up and then gets ultimate revenge. But bad idea from the jump. I mean, I already kind of went over that, but this article is very bad for Nick, including basically everything wrong he's ever done, all encapsulated in one little newspaper article back when people still read the newspaper, the physical newspaper. And to make matters worse, not only is J.K. Simmons, his boss, upset with him, the captain, who's his boss, who's the boss of J.K. Simmons, had taken a liking to him, died, so he is fired for damage control by J.K. Simmons' character because he no longer has that positive image or that peak moments. Now he's just this guy who's been getting shit on through a news article. I mean, he basically got canceled in the year 2006. Newspaper article, everything bad he's done. Like, we don't fuck with this guy anymore. We gotta get rid of him. So he's done, and he has a press conference, and he's going back to the reporter. He mentions how she slept with him, and he is going to testify after all. So that was kind of the big climax of the movie, is him testifying in court. Which, when that's your big climax, you got to be Oppenheimer to be a good movie. I know there's not a lot of no, everyone likes Oppenheimer, but he testifies, doing what he does best, winning the room, and then gets offered his old job back, but he's on to bigger and better things now. He's not going to take that after the disrespect they were showing him. I respect that level of petty. Also, if he has another high-paying job with a industry who's taking off, little spoiler for the end there, but I mean, yeah, you're not taking that job back after they fire you after that one occurrence, So good on him. His enemies are clowned on. The reporter, the senator. The senator is still doing stupid things like removing cigarettes from old movies, which is like, why? I mean, I don't think that aspect was really realistic. I mean, maybe there would be a senator that would do that, but I mean, even now, there's a lot of movies that come out with cigarettes. I mean, Peaky Blinders is one of the most popular TV shows in the 2020s slash late teens, and they're smoking cigarettes every second in that. So I don't think that part was necessarily realistic. And the reporter is sent to report on weather, and she's in the middle of bad storms instead of doing big think pieces. So at the end of the day, he does win because he's now going to work for cell phone companies and preventing the damages that cell phones do to you. Should have an easier job because I don't think a lot of people have died from using a cell phone rather than cigarettes, which have been a leading cause of death for a lot of people. So that's it for Nick Naylor. He's now going to just continue on working for cell phone people, and yeah, he's done with the nicotine industry. So that was it. That was Thank You for Smoking 2006. Honestly, looking back on it, there was a lot of fun moments in this. I don't think I would change my score, but I had a fun time talking about this movie today. So what were your guys' opinions on Thank You for Smoking? And did you like it more than I did? Did you like it less? What was your rating for Thank You for Smoking? If you haven't joined the DubCast Army, we're at 73 subscribers strong. No one subscribed in like 3 months, so it's really, hurting my motivations. Just kidding. I'm always going to post movie reviews. Survivor's back. TV show stuff is back. Severance. That's all I have to say. Now, maybe we'll do Severance. Got some interesting stuff lined up. UFC 313, depending on when I post this, it's coming out this week for the big event on Saturday, the 8th. Hopefully that's right. Pereira, Ankalaev, who you got? Besides that, sports stuff will chill for a bit until March Madness, and then we'll either do a weekly podcast. We'll definitely do a podcast at the beginning, breaking down March Madness, best time of the year. So I'm excited for that. Besides that, stay tuned. NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. You know I don't cover NHL playoffs because I don't know what I'm talking about. I do, man. I watch it. So we'll do a bracket for NHL. I don't know. Probably won't cover it, most of it, but yeah. I mean, if any of that stuff sounds interesting, subscribe. And if it doesn't, dislike this video and I'll just stop the channel. I won't, but you can dislike. A lot of people dislike the video. I don't know if it's because I say to dislike it. If that's the reason, I respect that because I do say it. And any interaction's positive interaction. So I need to know what you guys like, don't like. I know people don't like when I pick against their favorite characters on the tier list. So we'll see what happens. But that was thank you for smoking. So thank you for sticking along for this ride. If there's any suggestions that you guys have for the channel, you know, I'm always open to ears. I like the criticism. It's hard because I think about it and I get sad. But then I'm like, you know, if they're actually thinking that and telling me that, that's a good point. So I've taken everything into account. I'm rambling way too long. So as always, be easy, guys.